Chapter 31. The assessment begins. At that moment, Ling suddenly took out a pearl. This pearl was entirely deep blue, and the inside appeared misty. It looked beautiful, like a work of art. However, unfortunately, this pearl was not as simple as just being a work of art. Looking at the pearl in his hand, Ling loudly introduced it to the curious students below. I'm going to use this pearl to open a passageway to the secret realm in a moment. All students will enter the secret realm in order, one by one. Such a beautiful pearl was the key to opening the path to the secret realm. The students were all curious about what kind of mysterious power this could be. However, due to the pressure Ling had exerted earlier with his aura, most students were wary. So even though they were very curious, no student dared to discuss it at this time. The introduction was nearly complete, so it was time to get to the main point. Alright, the introduction is finished. Now it's time for today's main event. Ling's gaze sharpened as he tossed the pearl in his hand. All of a sudden, a powerful aura burst forth from his body. Ling injected a large amount of spiritual energy into the pearl. The pearl, which had previously appeared to be just a work of art, now shone brilliantly. The pearl was surrounded by a faint blue glow, after absorbing a large amount of spiritual energy. At the same time, the mist inside the pearl suddenly began to swirl. Soon, the aura around Ling weakened. He finally stopped injecting spiritual energy. Looking at the blue glowing pearl in his hand, Ling nodded slightly. Then, without hesitation, he threw the pearl in his hand. Except for those from prominent families, the commoner students were all curious about what the city lord was trying to do. What happened next shocked them even more. The pearl stopped in midair at the front of the square. It just floated there silently. The mist inside churned rapidly as if the pearl could barely contain it. Soon, the mist leaked out of the pearl and spread to both sides. The people in the front were mostly members of well-known families, so they were not afraid of this. The spreading mist gradually formed a circular shape around the pearl, about 2 people tall. It looked like a door, but the mist on this door was constantly flowing, not fixed in place. Now, the gate to the secret realm has been opened for you. Let me remind you that after entering, everyone will be transported to a random location. But one thing is certain, only one person will appear in each location, never 2 people at the same time. In the secret realm, all the items from the monsters you hunt will belong to you. I've said everything that needs to be said. Now, I declare, the first stage of the assessment begins. With that, Ling waved his hand. This also signified the official start of the first stage of the assessment. Under the guidance of the teachers, students from each class began to enter the passage to the secret realm one after another. With so many representatives watching, plus the city lord and teachers present, no student dared to cause trouble. Ling might have been unlucky, as his class was the last one. Therefore, the last class to enter the secret realm was their class. And he happened to be the last in line in their class. This meant Ling would be the last person to enter the secret realm. At this time, the representatives from various Spirit Master Academies were carefully observing each student. They had already started their selection process earlier. Ling, the representative from Black Tortoise Spirit Master Academy, sat in the front row and fixed her gaze on Xian'er. She nodded from time to time. Although it wasn't clear yet how strong Xian'er was, Ling's first impression of her was good. At least she looked very pretty. Walking at the very back, Ling watched as the passage got closer and closer to him. He felt somewhat excited in his heart. After all, Ling had said earlier that everything obtained in the secret realm will belong to them. It's worth noting that for Shuyu to continue evolving now, apart from growth, it also needed the Heart of Darkness and Dark Blood Essence. There is no way to find these 2 items close to Radiant City. Although these 2 items were available online, with the few Federation credit points Ling currently had, he couldn't afford to buy them. Selling the materials online still required some time, even though he had gathered quite a few in the previous few days. It would take a while for the credit points to reach his card. This trip to the secret realm would be entirely worthwhile if he could obtain the Heart of Darkness or Dark Blood Essence. It was unclear if he could obtain them, but that did not stop Ling from daydreaming. Bai Tong from the White Tiger Spirit Master Academy, with his sharp eyes, noticed Ling walking in the back of everyone. Chapter 32. Entering the Secret Realm. Bai Tong's perception of auras was sensitive. He sensed a different aura from Ling. Compared to other classes, The students walking at the end of the class were almost uniformly concerned about whether they would pass the first test. But Ling was different. Walking at the very back indicated that his abilities were lacking. Yet, he exuded powerful confidence. Bai Tong could sense Ling's confidence. It wasn't fake, but genuinely very strong. It was fascinating to see a student who ranked last in class be so confident in this situation. He was not sure why Ling was so confident, but it made Bai Tong look at him differently. I wonder what your support is. I'm curious, Bai Tong thought to himself. He had developed a great curiosity about Ling. Beside him, Lu Feng, the representative of the Azure Dragon Spirit Master Academy, noticed Bai Tong's unusual behavior. So Lu Feng asked curiously, "Teacher Bai, you seem very interested in a certain student." Hearing this, Bai Tong frankly admitted it. He pointed at Ling, who was about to enter the secret realm. "I'm a bit interested in this student. What makes a student at the bottom of the class act so composed? Is this his natural state? Or does he have some kind of support? I am curious." Following Bai Tong's gesture, Lu Feng saw Ling's somewhat sturdy figure. Although not very strong, he radiated powerful confidence. Even Lu Feng could sense it. Frowning slightly, Lu Feng also became a little interested in why the last-ranked student in the class was so confident. They were heading to a first-level secret realm, where high-level monsters could reach levels 9 or 10 of the first order. For a student ranked last, their strength would be average, at most reaching levels 2 or 3 of the first order. In the secret realm, if lucky, they might pass the test. But if unlucky, they might die on the spot. Some monsters were so fast that they could kill a student before they could even react, without a chance to teleport. Bai Tong and Lu Feng's conversation wasn't hidden at all, naturally attracting the interest of Hong Xiu, the representative of the Vermilion Bird Spirit Master Academy, and Hua Ling, the representative of the Black Tortoise Spirit Master Academy. Both turned their gaze to Ling. "I don't know why he's so confident, but I feel good about him," Hua Ling said, leaning back in her chair. A spirit master needs to learn confidence. When facing monsters, if you lack confidence, you've already lost 70% of the battle. Of course, this refers to confidence, not arrogance. Facing monsters with arrogance almost certainly guarantees death. Hong Xiu nodded gradually. However, she wasn't very interested in Ling. "It's a pity that our Vermilion Bird Academy only recruits female students. He's a male, so he's destined to have no connection with us." Indeed, among the 4 top Spirit Master Academies, the Vermilion Bird Spirit Master Academy was the most unique. Unlike the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, and Black Tortoise Academies, the Vermilion Bird Academy had only recruited female students since its founding. There are no exceptions. As for the reason, no one knows to this day. Only the first principal who founded the Vermilion Bird Spirit Master Academy knew the true reason. Unfortunately, the first principal was no longer in this world. However, each subsequent principal had adhered well to this rule, and no one dared to violate it. Therefore, the Vermilion Bird Spirit Master Academy could be called a man's paradise, as it was full of women. Unfortunately, from the principal to the teachers, from the teachers to the students, there wasn't a single male. It was entirely composed of women. Thus, the students Hong Xiu recruited this time would naturally only be female. She wouldn't consider any males at all. This is also why, among the 4 top Spirit Master Academies, the Vermilion Bird Spirit Master Academy had the fewest people. It was because they rejected many promising male students, benefiting the other 3 Spirit Master Academies. Back to Ling, it was finally his turn. Looking at the secret realm passage before him, a hint of excitement flashed in Ling's eyes. Without any hesitation, he stepped in. This may have been a test for other students, but it was nothing to Ling. It was merely a place to level up and farm evolution materials in his eyes. Ling faced a long corridor after entering the passage. At the end of the corridor, there was a bright light that indicated the passage's exit. And outside was the location of this test, the First Order Secret Realm. Chapter 33. Inside the Secret Realm, Steel-Winged Bird. Logically, Ling should have been able to see the students who entered the passage ahead of him. But when he stepped through the passage, he saw no sign of the others. This meant that each person entering the secret realm took a different path. Passing through the tunnel, Ling finally arrived at the source of the light. Although the light wasn't blinding, he couldn't see what was outside. Without thinking much, Ling directly stepped out. inside the first-level secret realm. This realm, befitting its purpose as the Federation's official testing ground, was vast. Within the realm, there were mountains, forests, rivers, and hills, all kinds of terrains imaginable. As the students participating in the test stepped out of their passages, illusory gates identical to those in the plaza appeared in various locations throughout the realm. The distance between each gate was at least several kilometers. Without exception, everyone was separated far apart. The misty illusory doors vanished as soon as they passed through the gates. Yiling's situation was no different. However, as soon as he landed, he felt a chill run through his body. Looking around at his surroundings, Yiling couldn't help but feel speechless. Good grief! He was teleported to the top of a mountain. No wonder he felt so cold upon arrival. Being on the peak of a mountain, how could it not be cold? After surveying his surroundings, Yiling knew he couldn't just wait silently on this mountaintop. In his current state, he wouldn't last long. The low temperature at the peak was unbearable for anyone to endure for an extended period. One had to rely on their spirit pets to survive in the secret realm. Therefore, Yiling immediately summoned Shuiyu from the spirit pet imprint. With a flash of blood-red light, Shuiyu, dressed in a blood-stained robe, appeared gracefully before Yiling. "Let's go. We'll figure things out once we're down the mountain." Yiling spoke to Shuiyu as he began looking for a way down. The fact that they could teleport to this location indicated that it was reachable by normal means. There had to be a way down, considering they were teleported to the top of the mountain. Sure enough, after a short search, Yiling successfully found a path leading down the mountain. Although the path was rugged, it was the only option available. They had no choice but to take it. Yiling's body was not as tough as Shuiyu's, so he had to take extra precautions when descending. Fortunately, Shuiyu could help. When the distance was right, she would just carry Yiling and jump down. Yiling found it thrilling. His little heart was pounding nonstop. Although he was a spirit pet master, his physical attributes weren't much different from ordinary humans. He could only draw some of his spirit pet's power from the spirit pet imprint after advancing to the 5th order. However, this goal was still a bit distant for Yiling. But it wasn't impossibly far. Given his current situation, Yiling felt that it wouldn't take too long to reach the 5th order. Call. When Yiling was about halfway down the mountain, a sharp cry suddenly rang out from the sky. Following the sound, he saw a large bird with a wingspan of about 2 meters circling in the sky. A steel-winged bird. Judging by its wingspan, it should be a young one. Yiling recognized the bird right away. Steel-winged bird, juvenile stage, around level 4 of the 1st order magical beast with steel-like wings. Indeed, with a 2-meter wingspan, it was still only a juvenile magical beast. From what Yiling knew about adult steel-winged birds, their wingspans were at least 5 meters. The one before his eyes was far from that. If it were an adult steel-winged bird, they probably wouldn't stand a chance. Adult steel-winged birds were typically 4th order magical beasts. For Yiling, who hadn't even reached the 2nd order yet, the chances of survival against a 4th order steel-winged bird would be minuscule. The steel-winged bird soaring in the sky had its gaze fixed firmly on Yiling's position. The steel-winged bird had already set its sights on Yiling. Higher terrain doesn't necessarily mean greater safety. It's important to remember that this entire area is the domain of magical beasts, including the sky. Moreover, some solitary magical beasts might be hiding in mountain caves. Call. With another sharp cry, the steel-winged bird didn't hesitate. It dove straight down, rushing towards Yiling at an incredible speed. Like an arrow shot from a bow, it rapidly closed the distance. Now you just had to come looking for trouble, Yiling muttered. If this were the Yiling who had just received the system, he might have been a bit more wary. But now Yiling and Shuiyu were far from what they used to be. Shuiyu, teach it how to be a proper bird, Yiling said to Shuiyu beside him, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. Chapter 34. The Troubles of Not Having a Flying Spirit Pet. Shuiyu, emanating a cold aura, nodded slightly. Compared to earlier, Shuiyu now appeared more humanized. Facing the rapidly approaching steel-winged bird, Shuiyu didn't seem particularly concerned. A mere 1st order level 4 monster, daring to attack was simply suicidal. Shuiyu's black fingernails suddenly elongated. These dark nails exuded a cold corpse energy unique to zombies and toxic to all living creatures. If one's skin was scratched, this energy could invade their body. At first, there might be no sensation, But as time passes and the corpse's energy circulates, it could lead to loss of fighting ability or even death, depending on the creature's poison resistance. As the steel-winged bird dove straight in, it trembled upon seeing Shueyu's sharp nails. It didn't understand why it felt this way, but instinct warned it to stay away from the person in red clothing. Otherwise, it would die. The steel-winged bird suddenly jerked its head up, swiftly changing its driving direction. His steel-hard wings flapping, it shot skyward. This vigilance saved it from disaster. If it had been a little slower, the ready Shueyu would have leaped up to strike. Though extremely powerful, Shueyu couldn't fly yet but could jump quite high with effort. Ling was surprised to see the steel-winged bird suddenly turn away. He had thought it was bolder, but it turned out to be this timid. Shueyu's prepared attack was rendered useless by the bird's sudden elevation. Ling gritted his teeth in frustration. "You're lucky this time, but next time you won't be so fortunate," he muttered resentfully as he continued down the rough mountain path. The steel-winged bird could only circle in the sky. It watched Ling's departing figure with yearning in its eyes. Even knowing it was weaker than the person in red below, the bird still desperately wanted to eat Ling. As they say, it's not the thief who steals that's worrisome, but the thief who keeps eyeing you. The bird's persistent circling made Ling very cautious. It didn't dare attack now only because Shueyu was nearby. If other powerful enemies appeared, Shueyu might be too occupied to protect Ling. Then the bird eyeing him from above would surely seize the opportunity to attack. Even knowing the situation, Ling had no solution for now. The sky wasn't his domain yet, as Shueyu couldn't fly. Ling decided his next spirit pet must be a flying type. It would serve for transportation and counter aerial threats. Ignoring the watchful steel-winged bird above, Ling focused on quickly finding suitable shelter, even a cave, for nightly rest. The first test lasted 3 days, and he couldn't go without sleep the entire time. Resting in the wild greatly increased the dangers. Meanwhile, students in other areas also began seeking suitable bases. Some started moving towards other locations, realizing their strengths were too weak to survive easily in this secret realm. Their only option was to band together for safety. Most doing this were lower-ranked students. The top-ranked students in each class disdained such actions, not wanting to cooperate with others. They believed their abilities were sufficient for the test, and potential collaborators might become burdens. Hua Xianer was among this group. She had no intention of cooperating, as her Earth Azure Dragon was now First Order Level 8. Only a few powerful individuals could match the Earth Azure Dragon in this first-level secret realm. With a bit of caution, she could easily pass the 3 days, barring encounters with group-dwelling monsters or realm overlords. These 3 days could be like a normal vacation for her. A giant screen on the stands of Radiant City High School's plaza showed the students who had entered the secret realm. The camera occasionally switched between different students. The representatives from various Spirit Master Academies watched the students' performances closely, observing every detail. Chapter 35. Ling's Eye-Catching Start. The Academy representatives nodded approvingly as they observed the students, who calmly responded and immediately began searching for suitable survival sites upon entering. However, they shook their heads when they saw students who immediately sought to cooperate with others. Although the first test didn't explicitly forbid cooperation, it was clear that all students were competitors. Relying on others instead of oneself at this stage, even if it led to passing the first test, would not result in a good ranking in the second combat ranking test. The first test was merely to screen out unqualified students. The real assessment was in the second test. However, there was a benefit. All students who passed the first test qualified to enter a Spirit Master Academy. Which specific academy they would enter depended entirely on their ranking in the second test. We've seen a few good ones who immediately knew how to find suitable survival locations, Lu Feng said with a smile on his face. He was now seeing some qualified students, proving that this trip wouldn't be futile. Although he visited Radiant City for recruitment every year, there was no guarantee that he would find anyone. To be considered, one needed to rank in the top 10 in the second test. Such individuals were usually geniuses, the only kind his academy would accept. Of course, if one wasn't a genius, the Azure Dragon Spirit Master Academy wouldn't want them. The same was true for other top-tier Spirit Master Academies. Even if you were only slightly better than your peers and far from being a genius, you would not stand out at a top-tier Spirit Master Academy. After entering a Spirit Master Academy, All cultivation resources came either from one's family or the school's resource allocation. To obtain the school's resources, one had to demonstrate corresponding strength. In each Spirit Master Academy, every grade had a ranking. Students at the top of the ranking could get more resources. These extra resources came from the lower-ranked students. Therefore, in various Spirit Master Academies, strength was one's greatest assurance. If you weren't a genius, even if you entered a top-tier Spirit Master Academy, you would receive insufficient cultivation resources, perhaps even fewer than what a high-tier Spirit Master Academy would provide. Of course, cultivation resources were just one aspect. There were many influences in various other aspects as well. Therefore, it wasn't possible to enter a top-tier Spirit Master Academy with just a little above-average ability. I've set my sights on that girl from our Hua family. Her strength is excellent. Without a doubt, I've already internally decided on her. Hua Ling said, smile never fading as she watched Hua Xian'er on the screen. The more she looked at Hua Xian'er, the more satisfied she became. Although she wasn't clear about Hua Xian'er's exact strength, Hua Ling had already communicated with Hua Qingshan before coming. She learned that Hua Xian'er's strength had at least reached level 7 of the First Order. With such strength at her age, entering a top-tier Spirit Master Academy would be no problem at all. The other three heard this and revealed bitter smiles. What could they do? After all, Hua Xian'er was a member of the Hua family and would undoubtedly enter the Black Tortoise Spirit Master Academy. There was no question about it. With one less genius, they had one fewer potential recruits. The most heartbroken was Hong Xiu, as the Vermilion Bird Spirit Master Academy only recruited female students. Such a talented female student being directly reserved by the Black Tortoise Spirit Master Academy naturally made Hong Xiu very depressed. If it had been a male student, Hong Xiu might not have even given a second glance. At this moment, the screen's image suddenly shifted to Yi Ling. The Academy representatives were surprised to see Yi Ling teleported to a mountaintop. Students were rarely teleported to such dangerous locations. Even Shang Lingkong frowned slightly. Clearly, this was unexpected. However, fortunately, Yi Ling remained very calm and composed, immediately finding a path down the mountain. Shang Lingkong nodded to himself, apparently satisfied with how Yi Ling calmly handled his situation. The most important point was that Yi Ling was not from a prominent family. It seems his luck is bad. He's encountered a first-order level 4 steel wingbird. He's likely to be eliminated. Everyone shook their heads when they saw Yi Ling being targeted by the steel wingbird. They had noticed earlier that Yi Ling was at the bottom of his class. How could he deal with a steel wingbird with such little strength? Therefore, they were certain that Yi Ling had no hope. Especially when they saw the steel wingbird make a rapid dive, they all thought Yi Ling would press the emergency teleport button on his wristband. However, the result completely defied their expectations. Yi Ling's spirit pet Chuyu merely showed its sharp claws and immediately scared off the steel wingbird. How is this possible? How did it retreat so quickly? What exactly is that spirit pet? Each representative was extremely surprised, wondering what kind of spirit pet Yi Ling had. Why did just one gesture scare away the steel wingbird? Chapter 36. Curiosity Bait. A humanoid spirit pet. Hua Ling frowned as she looked at Yi Ling's spirit pet, Chuyu, on the screen. It's worth noting that even in the Federation, spirit masters who use humanoid spirit pets are extremely rare. Furthermore, unlike rock giants who stand several meters tall, this spirit pet was of human height. In comparison to some powerful magical beasts, humanoid spirit pets have few advantages. Therefore, in the Federation, very few people deliberately choose humanoid pets. What kind of spirit pet is this? It looks almost human, Hong Xiu said curiously. She had never heard of any spirit pet that could look exactly like a human. Hearing this, Hua Ling and Lu Feng both shook their heads. Even these top-level representatives from Spirit Master Academies, who were 7th Order Spirit Masters, couldn't determine what type of spirit pet Xueyu was. Subsequently, all four of them turned their gaze to Shang Lingkong. As the mayor of Radiant City and the principal of Radiant City High School, he should know about this. Shang Lingkong saw Yi Ling's spirit pet for the first time. However, he had heard some rumors about the academy before. One of them was about a student named Yi Ling who had contracted a zombie spirit pet. As everyone knows, zombie spirit pets are useless. But Shang Lingkong hadn't connected Yi Ling from the school rumors with a young man on the screen. Being stared at by so many people, Ling Kong shook his head helplessly. I don't know who this student is, nor have I seen this type of spirit pet before. He paused, then added, but does it matter? If he truly has the ability, we will see him in the second stage of the evaluation. Ling Kong wasn't in a hurry to know who the young man on the screen was. They would naturally find out during the second stage of the assessment. However, he was also extremely curious about this student who could scare away a steel-winged bird with his spirit pet. Hua Ling pouted at Ling Kong's answer. The response was perfunctory, but it made sense. Therefore, although they were curious about this student's identity, the Academy representatives weren't in a rush. At least, this student hadn't yet shown abilities that would make them eager to recruit him. Meanwhile, in the secret realm, Ling, who had successfully descended from the mountaintop to the middle of the mountain, finally found a suitable place. It was a small cave that was relatively dry inside. This was quite rare and saved him the trouble of building a shelter. Compared to the forest below, the middle of the mountain was much safer. After tidying up the cave, Ling needed to prepare for hunting. Survival wasn't just about staying for 3 days. He also had to consider what he would eat during this time. He could hunt animals or magical beasts, as the meat from magical beasts was also edible. However, compared to ordinary animals, the meat of magical beasts might not taste as good. Moreover, he needed to be careful, as some magical beasts had poisonous meat that could be fatal if eaten carelessly. Shuiyu stood in a darker spot near the cave entrance. Although not afraid of the sun, Shuiyu preferred staying in shadowy places, especially liking the night. Ling came to the cave entrance and looked up at the sky. The steel-winged bird that had been following him was still circling in the sky, showing no intention of leaving. When Ling appeared at the cave entrance, the steel-winged bird's sharp gaze fixed on him. Its eerie eyes looked at Ling as if he were prey. TCH. This bird is annoying. I need to find a way to deal with it. Ling thought. He assumed the steel-winged bird would flee after following him for a while, seeing no opportunity. But unexpectedly, even after he stayed in the cave for some time, it continued circling in the sky. It had to be said that the steel-winged bird that had locked onto its prey was incredibly persistent. Back in the cave, Ling sat on a rock, pondering how to lure the steel-winged bird. This bird's target is me. I'm what it's most interested in right now, so the best bait is myself. Ling thought to himself. Using himself as bait certainly had some risks. However, there were ways to manage it. After all, Ling still had his spirit power techniques. As long as he was careful when using them, he could ensure his safety without problems. Deciding to act immediately, Ling prepared to try standing outside the cave first, with Shuiyu hidden inside. He hoped to use this method to lure the steel-winged bird into attacking him. After instructing Shuiyu to stay alert, Ling went to the cave entrance. He walked out a few steps and waited quietly. However, the steel-winged bird circling in the sky seemed unaffected by any lure. Apart from its eyes staring fixedly at Ling, it showed no other movement. As a result, the first attempt at luring failed. This bird is too cautious. It won't come out even like this. It looks like it's afraid of Shuiyu ambushing from the cave. Maybe. I need to go further from the cave entrance. Ling thought. Having failed to implement this plan at the cave entrance, Ling decided to try a new strategy. Chapter 37. Forest. Launching the attack. The steel-winged bird was so cautious because it had been frightened by Shuiyu's aura earlier. As a result, despite its intense temptation right now, the steel-winged bird was showing great self-control. It didn't know if Shuiyu, who had entered the cave with Ling earlier, was still inside. If Shuiyu was still in the cave, swooping down now would be suicidal. Before confirming it was safe, the steel-winged bird decided to observe first. Needless to say, the steel-winged bird had excellent patience. Even when facing food it desired, it could control itself with great effort. Watching Ling enter the cave again, a glimmer of desire flashed in the steel-winged bird's bright red eyes. Call. Letting out a loud cry, the steel-winged bird continued circling in the sky. After quite a while, Ling finally walked out of the cave. This time, however, Ling had already returned Shuiyu to his spirit pet imprint. Ling curled his lips into a smile as he looked up at the steel-winged bird that was still circling. This time, he was determined to deal with this bird. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Ling descended the mountain while the steel-winged bird hovered above, observing the situation below. As Ling moved, the steel-winged bird also began to move, flying towards the foot of the mountain. However, seemingly still wary, it maintained a safe distance. What a cautious feathered beast! Ling cursed silently, seeing the steel-winged bird still unmoved by his actions. But this kind of thing indeed required patience, and Ling wasn't in a hurry. He could use this time to observe the surroundings. Ling seemed to ignore the steel-winged bird in the sky. After about half an hour, Ling finally reached the foot of the mountain. At the base was a dense forest, with a faint mist permeating the entire woods. The mist in the forest wasn't thick now. It was currently high noon, so the mist was very light. As the sky gradually darkened, the entire forest would be shrouded in mist. At night, one couldn't see beyond 10 meters. The magical beasts living in this forest would become more active at night. At the same time, these magical beasts had a great advantage in this forest. They could sense the direction of their prey through smell. Even the mist couldn't affect their sense of smell. However, during the day, the magical beasts in this forest were relatively quiet and appeared less frequently. After descending the mountain and walking for a distance, Ling hardly encountered any magical beasts. The steel-winged bird in the sky finally realized that Shuiyu was not following Ling. Its courage grew a little, and it began to lower its flight altitude. Occasionally, it would land on the top of a tall tree to observe Ling. After a while, the steel-winged bird's patience had run out. Saliva dripped from its sharp beak, drop by drop. Caw! With a loud cry, the steel-winged bird swooped down from the treetop at the highest speed. Its wings suddenly folded together, then quickly spread out. But as its steel wings spread, rows of gleaming metallic feathers shot out at high speed, aiming directly at Ling's back. This steel-winged bird indeed had some brains, preparing to test the waters before launching its attack. Ling, who had been prepared, suddenly turned around and shouted, "Spirit Shield!" A burst of blue light erupted from his hands. An oval-shaped blue shield as tall as a person suddenly appeared in front of Ling. Ding, ding, ding! The feathers, seemingly made of metal, hit the spirit shield one by one. Fortunately, even though the first-order steel-winged bird was strong, these metallic feathers couldn't penetrate Ling's spirit shield. The rapidly diving steel-winged bird showed no signs of stopping. Its sharp, long beak stabbed directly at the spirit shield. Although called a steel-winged bird, its wings weren't the hardest part of its body. The hardest part was its sharp beak. The level 1 spirit shield Ling had released couldn't withstand such an impact. However, Ling had already planned a strategy to deal with the steel-winged bird. Suddenly freeing his right hand, Ling said softly, "Spirit chains." Between Ling and the steel-winged bird, ripples suddenly appeared. Swish, swish, swish. Blue spirit chains, entirely composed of spirit energy, instantly emerged from the ripples that had just appeared. These spirit chains, under Ling's control, locked onto the steel-winged bird. One by one, the spirit chains, with lightning speed, instantly wrapped around the steel-winged bird's wings, which were as hard as steel. Chapter 38. Problem solved. The sudden change caught the steel-winged bird off guard. Just as it thought the delicious food was about to fall into its mouth, it frantically flapped its wings, trying to break free from the control of the spiritual chains. But Ling, who had already set everything up, would not let it escape so easily. "Shuiyu!" Ling called out in a low voice. A blood-colored light emanated from the spirit pet imprint, and Shuiyu, dressed in a flowing blood-stained robe, appeared once again by Ling's side. "Finish it off." Ling immediately gave the order to kill. Although the spiritual chains he was using had successfully restrained the steel-winged bird, they wouldn't last too long. If this went on long enough, the bird might be able to break free. The steel-winged bird was very cunning. If it managed to escape this time, it would be even harder to catch it next time. This creature was too vigilant. It had to be dealt with this time to avoid future trouble. Receiving the order, Shuiyu silently moved forward. At this moment, the steel-winged bird was suspended in midair, struggling fiercely. It wasn't very high off the ground, a distance Shuiyu could easily reach with a single leap. Shuiyu's right foot pressed against the ground, and in an instant, it soared into the air. Seeing Shuiyu rapidly approaching, the steel-winged bird became panic-stricken. It desperately flapped its wings, trying everything to break free. At the same time, feathers as sharp as swords shot out from its wings. These gleaming feathers seemed intent on tearing Shuiyu to pieces. However, this attack posed no threat to Shuiyu at all. Its body effortlessly flowed between the sharp feathers. At this moment, Shuiyu was like a dancing spirit, gracefully moving through the sky. It didn't look like a battle, but more like a performance. The feathers that missed Shuiyu flew straight toward Yiling. Clank, clank, clank. The hard feathers struck Yiling's spiritual shield, making crisp sounds. If he hadn't preemptively deployed his spiritual shield, Yiling would have been riddled with holes from this attack. But all of this was within Yiling's calculations. Having dodged the barrage of steel feathers, Shu easily landed on the steel-winged bird's solid back. Without any hesitation, it extended its right hand, long black nails emanating a corpse-like aura. Swish! Then, with lightning speed, Shuiyu's right hand pierced through the steel-winged bird's skull. Gawk! When its head was pierced, the steel-winged bird let out a shrill cry. Its two wings flapped even more powerfully. Cracks began to appear on the blue spiritual chains entangling its wings. Yiling was also sweating profusely. He had to control the spiritual chains wrapped around the bird. The more fiercely the bird struggled, the harder it became for Yiling to maintain control. However, the bird's cries gradually became weaker. The frequency of its wing flaps decreased. Finally, the steel-winged bird's wings stopped moving altogether, and Yiling could finally breathe a sigh of relief. When Yiling let go of his control over the bird, the spiritual chains shattered. They turned into specks of blue spiritual energy, dissipating into the air. Without any support, the steel-winged bird plummeted straight towards the ground. Just before it hit the ground, Shu lightly leaped off its back. Boom! The steel-winged bird crashed heavily onto the ground. Unfortunately, a tree was crushed by the bird's fall. Shuiyu landed steadily beside Yiling, its right hand's black nails still dripping with the bird's blood. The impact of the bird hitting the ground raised a cloud of dust. Cough, cough. Yiling coughed lightly and quickly waved his hand to disperse the dust around him. After a while, when the dust had mostly settled, Yiling walked toward where the steel-winged bird had fallen. Approaching the bird's corpse, Yiling could finally clearly see the wound on top of its head. 5 deep finger imprints were still oozing blood. Seeing this, Yiling turned to look at Shuiyu's hand and unconsciously reached back to touch his head. If someone got hit in the head like that, their brain would be taken out right away, he thought. Thinking of this, Yiling couldn't help but shudder. He shook his head vigorously, trying to throw out the strange thoughts in his mind. Shuiyu was his spirit pet. How could he have such odd ideas? The steel-winged bird's body contained quite a few evolution materials. Of course, this only applied to adult steel-winged birds, and the one before him had not yet fully matured. How many evolution materials it contained was still unknown, and Yiling had searched for himself. After a period of searching, Yiling finally managed to clean up the corpse and successfully extract the evolution materials. As expected, the immature steel-winged bird didn't have many evolution materials. However, they were of higher quality and thus not cheap. Although he could not use them right now, he could sell them for a good price. Yiling let out a long sigh as he looked at the corpse of the steel-winged bird on the ground. It looks like I need to advance to the second order. Otherwise, it would be too troublesome to have to gather materials myself every time. Yiling shook his head at the corpse. Just collecting these evolution materials had taken so much time. Chapter 39. Surprised Ling. Indeed, it's still better in the secret realm. Outside, even if one encounters steel-winged birds, there would be adult ones. With Yiling's current strength, the chances of winning against an adult steel-winged bird were almost zero. Although he had already collected the evolution materials, Yiling didn't waste the meat of the steel-winged bird. He took a portion of it as food for his lunch and dinner. As for later, if he encountered other magical beasts or animals, that would be another matter. The most delicious meat on a steel-winged bird is the neck meat. Even in Radiant City, this type of meat was typically only served in high-end hotels. Capturing or killing a steel-winged bird in the wild requires considerable strength. Therefore, to eat this delicacy, one would have to pay a higher amount of Federation credit points. After collecting the neck meat he wanted, Yiling headed straight for the mountain path he had come down earlier. Naturally, Shuiyu followed closely behind. Unless necessary, Yiling would never return Shuiyu to the spirit pet imprint. After all, this was in the secret realm, where all kinds of magical beasts might exist. In case some treacherous beasts launched a sneak attack, without a spirit pet outside to defend in time, Yiling might be in big trouble. After all, summoning a spirit pet still takes some time. Oh. Outside the secret realm, all the representatives were now silent. Most of them thought Ling was just a bottom-tier student. Unexpectedly, the surprisingly quick end to the battle gave them a harsh reality check. Ling watched Ling and Shuiyu's departing figures with interest, a faint smile on her face. Combined with that alluring beauty mark, she was truly a devastating beauty. This student is interesting. I didn't expect him to deal with a first-order level 4 steel wing bird so easily, she said, resting her chin on her hand. Ling then turned her gaze to the others around her. She wanted to hear what they thought. Bai Tong nodded in agreement. Indeed, it's quite impressive. To have this level of strength at such a young age in Radiant City is not bad. And, before Bai Tong could finish, Lu Feng cut in from the side. And it's also a rare humanoid spirit pet. I'm looking forward to his future performance. Dealing with one steel-winged bird, Ling had entered the sights of these top-tier spirit master representatives. Of course, it was merely a bit of interest for now. As for the top 10, these representatives hadn't considered that yet. The students in the top 10 were all geniuses. The current Ling had only piqued their curiosity, not enough to truly excite them. Among the four, only Hongxiu remained unmoved, showing no particular interest in Ling. I'll leave him to you, but don't compete with me for the next girl, Hongxiu said, rubbing her temples in slight frustration. Hongxiu would have fought for Ling too, if she had been a girl, so she could not help it. Who told Ling not to be a girl? But a boy she'd pass. Sitting in the main seat, Ling Kong had already sent someone to find Ling's information when he first summoned Shuiyu. City Lord, here's the information you requested, a subordinate said, approaching Ling Kong with a mini-computer. Taking the mini-computer, Ling Kong waved for the subordinate to withdraw. After the subordinate left, Ling Kong opened the mini-computer and pulled up Ling's file. Opening the file, Ling Kong began to review it slowly. He picked up a nearby teacup and took a sip. Suddenly, Ling Kong's eyes widened as if he'd seen a ghost. The water he had just drunk was immediately spat out. This sudden oddity naturally caught the attention of the other representatives. The four top-tier Spirit Master Academy representatives sitting at the front naturally noticed the mini-computer in Ling Kong's hand. They exchanged glances and then inconspicuously moved closer to the front. They arrived not far behind Ling Kong and secretly peeked at the information on the screen. A zombie spirit pet? Ling exclaimed in surprise when she saw the pet name noted in the file. The sudden voice naturally alerted Ling Kong to the people behind him. He quickly closed the computer and acted as if nothing had happened, continuing to drink his tea. Although he appeared very calm, Ling Kong was shocked beyond belief. Ling's spirit pet was a zombie. Ling Kong was well aware of the nature of zombies. Tattered, looking terrifying zombies, how could they become like this? If you said this was a person, people might believe it. But if you said this was a zombie, no one would believe it. The main problem was that people's perceptions of zombies had already been shaped. How could the well-known zombie possibly look like Ling's spirit pet? The four representatives felt helpless because they were unable to view more detailed information. The student's file did not need to be hidden, so why was it kept so secret? Ling pouted and shot a fierce glance at Ling Kong's back. Chapter 40. Strategic Move, Taking the Initiative. Ling Kong did not want to share this information because it was difficult to believe. Ling Kong did not believe a zombie spirit pet could do this. However, there was still the second stage of the assessment to come. The truth would soon be revealed, but first, Ling Kong felt he should take a look and confirm whether Ling had falsely reported his spirit pet. To ascertain this, Ling Kong again summoned his subordinate from earlier, instructing him to find Ling's class teacher and confirm Ling's situation. As for Ling and the other three, they had returned to their positions. They were all lost in thought. They had all seen what was written on the information sheet, zombie spirit pet. But how could they not know what a zombie spirit pet looked like? The spirit pet Ling had summoned earlier was far too different from a zombie. Do you think, could it be that his zombie has evolved? Ling pondered for a long time, feeling this might be the only explanation for why Ling's zombie spirit pet looked so different. Is that possible? The other three looked at each other in bewilderment. They had never encountered such a situation before. For now, they couldn't be certain about this matter. Ling could tell from watching Shang Lingkong summon his subordinate and arrange for something to be done that it had something to do with Yiling. With a slight smile forming on her lips, Ling said softly, "No need to rush. Our city lord is also completely unaware of this matter. Didn't you see him send someone to investigate? I think we'll have news soon. Besides, there's still the second stage of the assessment. Then we'll easily know whether this Yiling's spirit pet is a zombie or not." Since Yiling was there and wouldn't run away, Ling wasn't in a hurry at all. After all, since Yiling could participate in the assessment, he must want to join the Spirit Master Academy. As long as his goal was the Spirit Master Academy, everything could be discussed. Hearing this, the other three nodded in agreement. However, at this time, the representatives at the back were also in a bit of an uproar. Due to Ling's earlier exclamation, although most of the representatives still didn't know whose so-called zombie spirit pet it was, it didn't affect their discussions at all. In the secret realm, not long after Yiling left, a pitch-black figure appeared next to the steel-winged bird. From a distance, it looked like a wolf. This jet-black wolf came to the side of the steel-winged bird and sniffed heavily a few times. Slowly raising its head, those eerie green eyes stared intently in the direction Yiling had left. Then, without hesitation, the black wolf turned and ran into the forest. Due to the time flow in the secret realm being much faster than the outside world, spending 3 days here would only be about half a day outside. Returning to the cave halfway up the mountain, Yiling delightfully enjoyed his lunch, which was roasted steel-winged bird neck meat, and then began to ponder what to do for the next 3 days. Waiting here and dragging out time wasn't impossible. Surviving for 3 days wasn't much of a problem for Yiling. However, it was a rare opportunity to enter the secret realm. Who knew when the next chance to enter would come? It probably wouldn't be possible in the short term. Seizing this opportunity, he could make a big profit. Furthermore, with his current strength, he could walk sideways through the secret realm. Weighing the pros and cons, Yiling chose to take the initiative. Taking Shuiyu with him, Yiling began his killing spree in the secret realm. First, Yiling started by clearing the area around the mountain. This area was close to the mountain, with a forest at the foot. It could be said to be an excellent living environment, and many magical beasts preferred to reside there. Sure enough, after descending the mountain path and walking around the mountain's perimeter, it wasn't long before they encountered the first wave of magical beasts. Yes, it was a wave, not just a single one. Bristle pigs are low-level magical beasts, generally only reaching around level 3 or 4 of the first order when fully grown. They looked pretty much like real pigs, but compared to ordinary pigs, bristle pigs had long spines growing on their backs. The spines on the bristle pigs' backs were very sharp. Although not poisonous, these spines could be fired out. If one is not careful, the spine of a bristle pig can pierce even a spirit master. This wave of bristle pigs was quite numerous, about a dozen or so. Although they didn't provide much experience, a little was better than nothing, and Yiling didn't mind at all. Yiling understood well the principle of many a little makes a mickle. It wasn't realistic to always think about finding and hunting higher-level magical beasts. No matter where, there would always be fewer high-level magical beasts than low-level ones. Because the higher the level of the magical beast, the higher it was on the food chain, and thus fewer in number. Shuiyu, take them down. Yiling waved his hand lightly, and Shuiyu, standing beside him, instantly transformed into a blood-colored shadow.